Hi everyone, Donna here with Bookkeeping Made Simple, and today I'm super excited. We have a guest with us. It's Katie
Hi.
Saxton with Utah
Hi.
Real Estate. We're going to talk a little bit about the real estate market, specifically in Utah, but I think this really affects most of the nation. We're going to talk a bit about the economic forecast as well. So
Yeah.
stay tuned. So
Well,
Katie,
I'm excited to be here, Donna. Thank you for inviting me.
thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Tell me what you're seeing in the market right now.
Well, what I'm seeing in the market is we're kind of in a zone where it is actually an excellent time to buy. I hear over and over, and the news is kind of flashing bad news that, the interest rates are approaching 8%. Yes, they are. However, there is no competition. So when you go to put an offer in on a home, you're pretty much the only offer instead of fighting through 9 other offers. So not a lot of competition. That's one. And number two, sellers are so willing to negotiate, and they are negotiating. So they're doing 3 things that they were not doing when interest rates were 2%. That is, they're negotiating on the purchase price. They're paying closing costs and interest rate prepaid buy downs. And they're negotiating on timelines, leaving furniture. There's just such an opportunity to negotiate. And then even if you do come in at a higher interest rate, a good loan officer will tell you how you can refinance at a later time or even pay down further an interest rate. For sellers, it's a good time to sell because we have a housing shortage in Utah, and it's significant. We have the least amount of inventory we've had in the last 20 years. So when a home does come on the market, it's going. It takes a little bit of time to move it, but it moves. And there's a zone here of where I just think it's still an excellent time to sell and to buy.
Awesome. I agree with that. I'm fortunate that, or maybe not, I'm old enough to remember the first time I ever really knew about or was old enough to be aware of purchasing or selling a home was when I was a teenager, and we sold our home in Seattle and moved to Kentucky. And at that time, it was 81, and rates were, the purchaser on that home paid 21%.
Isn't that just hard to believe?
And because that's kind of my baseline, I'm still going, 8%, that's not that bad.
And when I first got my license back in the early 2000s, it was 2002, interest rates were 6.25 to 6.25. So I'm not, saying that 8% interest rates aren't a big deal, because it is.
Yeah.
But people have to face reality. And that is that those days of the 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe we'll get to 5 eventually, but those days are gone for now. And we have to deal with the current market, not what happened 2.5 years ago.
Right. And honestly, owning your own home is still one of the very best ways, other than business ownership, to build wealth. And business ownership is so risky that
it is,
I
especially
tell
today.
people all the time, they need to get in their own home. I've heard it said you marry your home, you date your rate.
Yeah.
So there may be an opportunity to refinance those loans later at lower interest rates. So if any of our viewers are wondering what to do, just keep in mind these interest rates change all the time. It could go back down. I think they're going to hike it one more time this year. But I know you've got a fantastic loan officer you work with too.
I do. And Donna, we both know him. His name is Rick Lynn with a Canopy Mortgage. Rick is very seasoned. He's fast. He's been in business a long time, so he's experienced, and he's so knowledgeable about the various different loan products. So he will sit with one of my clients and go over what is the best loan product for you right now. And then once we get you in the home and closed, that doesn't mean that you can't change that down the line. But Donna, I agree. owning real estate, it's the best way to beat inflation. So it isn't maybe, yes, things cost more, but the value of our money has gone down.
Yeah,
And it's just a great security. And there's all kinds of options out there.
yeah, I agree. And I think especially it's the younger people that are maybe buying for the first time, or people like me where I've never been in a position where I've been able to buy because I'm self-employed, because I've been a single mom, because I've moved around a lot. I really haven't had an opportunity to purchase, but I wouldn't let market conditions
Right.
dictate whether or not I purchase. Sometimes it's a seller's market, which it's not right now. It's a buyer's market, I guess.
It is.
And it's going to depend on kind of what the demand is, what the supply is, those old economic concepts that people forget. This is all how it works, and things ebb and flow, and just because things are a little bit rough right now doesn't mean it's going to stay that way.
Right. And so you have to, one thing that I tell my buyers is that if you're really serious, and then I know if you're really serious, is the very first step, Donna, that they have to do is they have to get pre-qualified for a loan.
Yeah.
A pre-qualification letter must accompany the offer. It really isn't an offer without the pre-qualification letter and 1% or more of earnest money. And if somebody's balking or dragging their feet about not wanting to get the things to the lender and get pre-qualified, then you're not a real buyer. But by getting pre-qualified, it puts a picture frame around the whole opportunity. It comes in letter form and it's good for 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't find a home within that 90 days, it's just reissued. I always tell people, if you're really going to buy a home, don't go open up a lot of lines of credit. Don't go take on unnecessary debt. Don't quit your job, because even a few days before closing, those things are verified. I just had a gentleman that I was trying to work with, a police officer, and we had him all set and said, okay, between now and the time we close on a home, don't spend any unnecessary money. And he went and took out a loan for a motorcycle, and it took him out of his debt to ratio was too high. So I said, well, you got a motorcycle and you're not going to get a house.
Yeah.
So enjoy that motorcycle.
Enjoy it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just depends. If you really want to get into home, you will get pre-qualified, and you will sit with the lender and get them what they need.
Yeah, I'd say the only exception to that is if you have the cash to pay in full.
Sure.
Which is not a very common thing. So
very rare. Most people have to borrow. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I just had a car dealership where I bought my car reaching out to me, trying to get me to upgrade. And I told them point blank, I was like, my husband and I are talking about buying a house, and until we decide one way or the other, I do not want to open a new loan.
You don't.
Any lines of credit. I don't want to close any either.
Right. And then when we get close, the lender will lock your rate. So even if it goes up, if it's locked and it goes up from the time that lock is to the close, you're fine. It's a locked rate. That is your rate.
That is your rate.
And yeah, Rick shops really good rates, and he's very competitive.
Yeah, Rick is great.
He is great.
Now, what about people who are self-employed? Because that's been kind of one of the big hangups, and I'm sure I'm not the only person out there who's had trouble getting into a mortgage simply because I have more income than I would if I worked for an employer. But at the same time, lenders want to see
all the expenses that we have as business owners. So we have to pay our own taxes and our own health insurance and any employees, and there's a lot to it. So again, I always say though that you sit down with your financial planner and you say, okay, this is what I need to pay myself, and this is what I'm going to put down. So lenders look for a credit score of around 678 or higher.
Mm-hmm.
And we want at least $20,000 down or more to go conventional loan product, which is better terms and a better interest rate. You need at least 10,000 or more to go VA. But VA loans are a bit harder, and there are appraisals, and like you can't have peeling paint, you can't have broken glass in the home. There's guidelines of a home that have to be met by the lender if you're going to go FHA. So conventional is the way to go. And the more you can put down and a larger down payment, the better the terms and the lower your house payment is every month.
Yep. Awesome. So I've been kind of preaching really living within your means. And I really feel like there's a lot of people that are not, I hate to use the term, but they're not financially literate. They don't really understand how to make their money work for them. What are some ways that they can use real estate to do that, or how can they get into a home?
Well, again, there's all of the tax write-offs that come, with your property taxes and with your mortgage interest. There's just so many benefits. Also, if you work from home and you have a designated office, a lot of that, a portion of all of that is going to be written off as a business expense. So again, I'm not an accountant or a financial planner. So I would sit down, with someone that can guide you as to, do you want to put your home in a trust? What kind of a trust? Do you want a living trust? Do you want an irrevocable trust? Do you want to homestead it? There's all kinds of options that, you can do. If you're an investor, do you want a syndicate? Do you want an LLC? And that is where you really need to sit down with a financial planner and put all this together. But real estate works in the end. It always works. I always say, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. That's
exactly. Exactly. I hear a lot of people talking about affordability, and I think you're right. It's just that the value of the dollar is dropping.
Yep.
So it takes more dollars, but if you compare it to something that's been fairly stable in value, such as gold,
Right.
The cost of a house really hasn't changed.
Well, it
It is
hasn't.
the value of the dollar that's changed.
Right. And yes, I hear that all the time. Affordability around our country, but especially in the Salt Lake Valley, is difficult. Last spring, and this is like the third, fourth year in a row, or it's been voted several times, Salt Lake City is the #1 place to live in the country. When we had the Olympics, it put it on the international stage. There's rumors we're going to get the Olympics again. People are coming here in droves from the East Coast and the West Coast. And so to them, when they see an $800,000 home coming from New York, that's not a big deal to them. So
Right.
the prices are going up. But remember, it's a listing price. Just because it's a listing price doesn't mean it's going to be the purchase price. Don't be afraid to go in and really ask for a discount if you feel that home warrants that discount, or if there's repairs that need to be done. I always say an offer is an offer, and usually your first offer is your best offer. So don't be afraid to ask for some deductions.
I think I think for myself, that's something I have a hard time with. Because I'm just used to going to the grocery store and you pay whatever is listed,
Not that way in real estate. You
It's not that way
really
in a
can
lot of things.
negotiate on a lot of points of
Yeah.
sorry, like it needs new carpeting, I want it off the purchase price. It needs this, I want it off the purchase price, or a new roof. Sellers are very willing and very amenable to negotiate in ways that they weren't just a few years ago. So it is an excellent time to buy. It really is. And this waiting, home prices are not going to come down in this valley.
I don't think
They're
home
not.
prices are going to come down ever.
Period. And we may get a little fluctuation in the interest rate, but this is, like I say, when I talk to people, I said, I want to talk about the market that's gone on in the last 3 months, 3 years ago.
Right.
That conversation is not going to help us right now.
I agree. I think a lot of people are really living in the past.
Yep.
I would have loved to have bought a house at like 1.5% or 2% or whatever. But I wasn't in the position to do that at that time. And that's even back when it was a lot higher, when it was 6 and 7% before. I still wish I had bought a house then, because I would have all that appreciation I'd be able to take
Right.
advantage of. I'd have equity in it. And
Yeah.
I don't have equity right now because I'm still renting.
Right, right. Well, homeownership is possible. You're never too old to buy a home. The other trends I'm seeing is family members are buying homes together. I think the American culture is when we turn 18, we move away from our family home. We go off on our own. We're very independent, to where in a lot of cultures they never do. I mean, the grandparents live there, the aunts live there, the cousins live all in one home. So I just have a client last night. They signed a buyer agency agreement. Mom and daughter are both renting, and they're paying each an outrageous amount in rent. And those two qualified together for a loan. They're buying a home together. They're going to own it 50-50. And we're going out tomorrow to show them homes. So get creative. If there's a family, you can get along with each other, pull your resources together and buy a house, and each own part of it.
Yeah. Getting along together is probably the most critical part that
right. And that's what people are having to do to afford it, is they're having to pool their resources.
Yeah, and I think people have really gotten used to living in luxury, and they don't realize just how luxurious our lifestyle is.
Yes.
I've heard, again, this is the younger people, like my kids' age, saying, your grandparents had it so easy. And I'm like, well, but when I was
didn't
born,
though.
when my parents bought their first house, my mom was a full-time stay-at-home mom.
Right.
They lived on my dad's income, which was like $50 a week, folks. and they budgeted everything down to the penny because they just couldn't afford not to.
Well, and Donna, remember, that was a time where we did things together as a family. Life was simpler then. You worked together. I grew up on a farm in a very rural community, and we had one black and white TV with 4 TV stations. I will never forget the day, I think I was in junior high, how proud my father was when he paid off our farm and he burnt the final loan payment, like, I don't owe you guys any more money.
Yeah.
And it was just a very proud moment. And our society just runs on debt.
Yeah,
and I
it
think
really
if
does.
you can look at it and say, okay, what do I not need to spend here? I don't need a Starbucks every day. Maybe I can make my coffee at home.
Yeah. Maybe I save the Starbucks for when I'm out with friends, and
Sure,
not just
something like
because
that.
it's on the way to the office.
Sure. It all matters. It all adds up.
And I wouldn't tell anyone to cut out all of your little luxuries completely, but
No.
think deeply about where is your money going, because $10 avocado toast 5 days a week adds up really fast.
Yeah, it does.
And if you don't count your pennies, you're going to lose out on a lot of dollars.
Right.
So I can't think of any other questions that I wanted to ask you. So
okay, well, I just so appreciate being on your podcast, and I just enjoy seeing you every week. And it's a great time to buy and hold on to some real estate.
I agree. I don't think anyone should be holding themselves back from purchasing real estate just because the market conditions aren't perfect, because they're never going to be perfect. You're much better off going ahead. If it's on the radar, go ahead and start talking to a loan officer. Again, we've got a really good one that we know. Yeah. And go ahead and start the process. The worst thing that can happen is they'll say no.
Well, and one last thing, Donna, that you just brought up this point is that, okay, so people drag their feet, but I don't want to get pre-qualified. It's like, well, really you need to, because 3 things or a few things are going to happen. You're going to get qualified and you're fine. Then that qualification letter will say you only qualify for a $600,000 home. I'm not going to show you a $650,000 home. Right. And I never recommend that people borrow at the very top. So I'll show them 600, and then I'll show them 580, and then I'll show them 550, and then I'll show them 525, so that they can see,
kind of what the range is that they're
the ranges are, what you get. The second thing that Rick will say to you is, you're not ready to buy a home. These are the reasons why, and I can get you ready. You
Yeah.
need to go through credit repair. You
Mhm.
need to start saving some money. You need to get this collection off of your credit report. That can take time. Credit repair can be anywhere from 3 months to, I've seen it go up to 2 years.
Uh-huh.
But at least you have, I know where I want to go, but this is where I have to start.
Yeah, it's a
But
lot
until
easier
you
to
go
get
through
where you
that,
want to
and
be
it's
when
a
you have a
completely
plan.
free process. Rick doesn't charge anything. I don't charge anything. We get paid at the end. We do our
Mhm.
work up front and then we get paid at the end. So,
Yeah, I think a lot of people just don't realize that there's going to a loan officer and saying, I want to buy a house. You might end up, you should, if the officer's any good, you should end up with a roadmap. If he has to say no, you should end up with a roadmap to yes.
exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you, Donna. It was a pleasure visiting with you.
It was so great to have you on, Katie. Thank you so much for being on.
You bet. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.